It is a bad idea to tip cows, but what about inking cows? I have a deck for you today here that is what I'm calling a core casual deck. Core meaning core of the format, and casual meaning in this case just not meta. So you can come and you can play this against meta decks. Might not get like the 70 or 80% win rate that meta decks would want, but you should hopefully still get a 50% win rate and the satisfaction of knowing that your opponent will have no idea what you're doing for the first game. So here is cow control. I kept almost saying paw patrol, but here is cow control. And we're going to start where I did, which is what inspired me for this deck. So this is Ink Geyser. If you don't know what Ink Geyser is, it's a pretty cool card and everybody was talking about it when it was first released. Each player exerts all the cards in their inkwell and they return cards from their inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards in their inkwell. A great way to set your opponents back if they have like 5 cards in their inkwell and they're going to play a 6-drop next turn that's going to just be devastating to your gameplay. Playing Ink Geyser means that all of a sudden they're down to half the ink that they were expecting, which sets them back so many turns to be able to play that 6-drop that they were going to play. It is a global effect though, which means that Ink Geyser does send cards back from your inkwell. And in a deck like Sapphire or in a color like Sapphire where like there's a lot of really big, awesome characters that you want to be playing, it feels like Ink Geyser punishes you just as much as your opponent. So the design space here comes from, you have to figure out how to use Ink Geyser's ability to your benefit, as opposed to just kind of suffering the detriment that both you and your opponent will be getting. So how do we use it to our benefit? Well, the card that comes to mind is Mufasa. So you might look at Mufasa first and think, I don't understand how this is going to go well with Ink Geyser. Ink Geyser sends ink back from the inkwell to your hand, which means you're going to be even slower playing this H-drop awesome card. And I say you're right about that in theory. However, if you can get Mufasa out early, which in a ramp deck you should be able to, and there's other ways to do it as well, it means that you have a 4/9 that quests for 4, and your opponent is going to be stuck at 3 ink when you play Ink Geyser, which really just makes Mufasa kind of almost untouchable. So Mufasa should be able to win you the game, and if he can't, I don't know what else is going to win you the game there. So Mufasa does help get you around Ink Geyser because whenever Mufasa quests, you ready the cards in your inkwell, which means that you get 2 activations of your ink a turn. Which obviously is a way for you to use Ink Geyser so that it doesn't actually hurt you as much as it would hurt your opponent. If you're going to be ramping up to Mufasa, you need to be able to keep cards in your hand. And how are you going to do that? With Clarabelle. So Clarabelle says that at the end of your turn, you pick an opponent and you draw cards until you have the same amount in your hand as that opponent. So long as you can keep cards in your opponent's hand, you will get to draw cards off of Clarabelle. So good news for your opponent, we're being very nice and generous here and playing an Emerald deck that is not playing discards. So that should make your opponent happy. Next thing I have here is obviously Clarabelle is a 7-drop. We can shift her in though. And Mufasa is an 8-drop, and we don't want to be playing them fairly on turn 7 and 8, which means we need ramp. These 2 cards are the standard ramp pieces for Sapphire. Tipo lets you ink anything, and Sail the Azurite Sea lets you draw a card and put in an extra ink into your inkwell. Both great cards. Sail the Azurite Sea draws you that extra card, which is good and important, and Tipo could let you get rid of something uninkable in your hand if you're stuck with them. So solid staples as far as ramp decks go. So we're not playing solo Lorcana here, which means that your opponent is going to have cards out that you're going to have to answer and deal with. The answers that we have for these colors are Hades. He is a staple in Sapphire decks and lets you turn something into ink. So that problem piece that your opponent has you need to get rid of, it's now ink. He is a 7-costed card though, which means that we do want to be ramping to be able to get to him nice and early because he can't shift, which means that we have to play him at 7 ink. If your opponent is playing aggro, Ender the Sea answers them pretty well, as it puts any characters from your opponent's board with strength 2 or less on the bottom of their deck. Now that's great, it's awesome, but if your opponent has characters that are slightly too big to be under the seed, our options are Sapphire Coil. So every time you put a card into your inkwell, which should be hopefully more than once a turn, chosen character gets -2 strength. So you can pick the 2 bigger characters your opponent has, or the 2 like 4 strength characters your opponent has, and then under the sea and everything that is now, you know, those two that you shrunk and everything else that is under 2 will go to the bottom of your deck. My last option here is You're Welcome. It shuffles a card back into that player's deck, and then they are going to draw 2 cards. So you could be giving your opponent more cards, which is never a good idea. However, if you're going to be playing Ink Geyser anyways, they're not necessarily going to have the ink to be able to use many options. So it doesn't matter if they have like 12 cards in their hand. If they only have 3 ink, they're only playing 1 or 2 things. So those extra cards are not necessarily going to be a make it or break it for your opponent. Next thing I have for you here is kind of, I guess, an ideal setup. Ideally, how does the deck want to play? First off, let me see if I have this on view. Okay, first off, we have early turn plays. So turn 1, let's play a Basil. Basil's great. It's got support. It means that if we have to challenge in with some of our characters, they're going to get a little bit bigger because of Basil, which might help you with some of your trades. Turn 2, we're going to ink. And then we're going to play a ramp character or spell. So we have Tipo or Sail the Azurite Sea. So we should be at 3 ink now after we ramp. When we go to turn 3 and we ink, we're actually at 4 ink, which means we get to skip our 3-drop slot altogether and go right to 4. So my example for here is Chicha, because it pairs nicely with Tipo, and it gives a character Reckless when she comes in. So this means that your opponent's character you don't want them to quest with, you can now give them Reckless and they have to challenge. So we're sitting at 4 ink. We're going to go to turn 4. So we're at 5 ink now here. We're going to be super generous with our opponent, and we're going to give them a character that they can put in for free with Return of Hercules. Now we get to do that as well. And the card that we're going to put in for free with Return of Hercules is Mufasa. So we're playing Mufasa on turn 4. Which is just awesome and kind of ridiculous. So Mufasa comes out on turn 4. When he comes out, we're going to return 2 ink from our from play. So we have 5 ink because we ramped. We're going to return 2, so we're at 3 ink right now. Next turn, we're going to, still sitting at 3 here, we're going to play Ink Geyser. It exerts all of our ink. And then we're going to, and it returns up until we have 3 ink in our inkwell to our hands. Same with our opponents. We're already at 3 though, as you can see. So we are now going to quest with Mufasa. We're going to ink something else. So now we're sitting at 4 ink. Because Mufasa readies our ink, we can now use that 4 ink again, and we can play a Clarabelle. So this Clarabelle here, the main point to her is that on our next turn, when we ink, we can shift right up to the big Clarabelle and start getting cards as well. So we have sent back our opponent's ink. We have a Mufasa and a Clarabelle out. To me, that is a pretty commanding board state. So here's the deck. So this is my deck list here. There's a link there to Dreamborn if you want to get like a copy of it yourself that's not on a YouTube screen. And this is kind of what the plan is. So the plan is early turn things like Basil and Ramp. Mid-game, we want things like our Clarabelles for our shift targets, or kind of like our answer tech pieces. So Chip if we want to do discard stuff. Chicha if we need to give something Reckless, or Ben if we need to give something else support. And then very quickly we want to push into our late game plays like Mufasa and Clarabelle and Hades if we need to answer stuff. We have plenty of actions to be able to do things like draw more cards or shift through our deck looking for things with visions, and then our answer pieces with Under the Sea and I guess the You're Welcome. Oh my goodness, the words were hard there. And You're Welcome. Our big answer piece is obviously Ink Geysers. It's going to set our opponent back, and then we can push our game forward with a Mufasa out, which again, I just think Mufasa on turn 4, questing on turn 5, and putting all of that ink back to our opponent's hand, it seems pretty awesome. So this is a deck that I really hope you enjoy. Give it a shot, and I hope your opponent does not enjoy this deck at all. It seems awesome. I mean, Mufasa, yeah, that seems awesome. Well, that is my cow control core casual list. And like I said, hope your opponent doesn't enjoy it, but at least smiles.